എല്ലാം മ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്തോ? മ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്ത് നമുക്ക് അന്നേരം അൺമ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യാം.
ഗുഡ് ഈവനിങ്.
Good evening, Paraniyada.
Nitin sir, namaskar.
Good evening, sir. Nitin sir.
Everyone, good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Yeah. Seeth, will start.
Yes, sir, we can start, sir. It's time.
So, very good evening, dear friends. Today is 12th in the series of TTS, Thrissur Talk series. We are completing 1 year. So, today we have a very important person, Dr. Nitin Kesha as a speaker, and also our Honorable Secretary General Vineet Saxena to celebrate our 12th meeting of TTS. TTS is on infection, immunization, and antibodies. We are exclusively for these 3 topics. We are conducting this series of talk on last Thursday of every month. So today we lucky to have our Honorable Secretary General and also Nitin Shah sir, and so many people are from Kerala and outside. Today we are lucky to have them, and I formally invite Dr. Pawan Madhusudan, the newly elected Secretary of IAP Thrissur branch, to welcome the gathering. Over to Pawan.
Thank you, sir, and good evening. Once again, welcome to this EME session organized by IAP Thrissur on infections, immunization, and antibiotics. This is the Thrissur Talk series. This is the 12th one in the series. So let me take this opportunity to welcome our branch president, Dr. Rakesh, then Dr. Vineet Saxena, the Honorary Secretary General of IAP, Central IAP, our guest speaker of the day, Dr. Nitin Kesha, who is the National President of IAP, Central IAP 2006, and who is an expert in the field of vaccination, who is going to give the talk on COVID-19 variants and vaccination, which is going to be a very wonderful talk, as we all know. Then our State President, Professor Vijay Kumar sir, Dr. Johnny Sebastian, the Secretary of IAP Kerala State, and all other dignitaries who is attending online, including Parvati Madam, Purushothaman sir, Srinivasan sir, and all other dignitaries. Once again, I welcome all of you, and let me take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Ananthakeshavan sir for becoming the member of the Advisory Committee for Vaccination and Immunization Practices, and I welcome him along with all the other delegates who has joined the meeting. Once again, thank you for joining. Over to AK sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pawan. I invite Dr. Rakesh, the dynamic president of IAP Thrissur branch. Over to Rakesh.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. AK sir. Good evening, sir, everyone. Respected Honorable Secretary IAP, Central IAP Vineet Saxena sir ji, Dr. Nitin Kesha sir, past President National IAP, and Dr. Vijay Kumar sir, our State President, our State Secretary Dr. Johnny Pawan, and of course Dr. Ananthakeshavan sir. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to the God's own country, especially Thrissur. It's a land of it's a temples and festivals, and which has not been happening since 1.5 years, 2 years. So hopefully the Zoom also will be converted into physical meeting in the coming days, because a speaker like Nitin Shah sir, we have already heard a lot of talks about Nitin Kesha, like we used to attend the conferences. So sir was so nice in the hematological disorders and everything. We have learned a lot of things from Nitin Shah sir. We will welcome you, sir, to this talk series, sir. And we are looking forward for a very nice and the need of the hour talk. The COVID vaccine in the present scenario, as we all know, is very important to all of us, especially the pediatric age group, and the current crisis, and now this Omicron wave. I think more of the pediatric age group children are affected, and we are looking forward to use her for a very nice talk about this. And I welcome one and all the seniors from our branch, Dr. Parvati Madam, Dr. Purushothaman Sir, Dr. Muralidharan Sir, everyone whoever has joined, and also the state leaders as well as the central leaders. So I welcome you all once again, and thank you for joining with us today. Over to AK, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. Now we are very lucky to have our Honorable Chief Secretary, Dr. Vinay Saxena, sir, to inaugurate our 12th meeting. And we only know that he's a great academician and a great organizer. And we are lucky to have Dr. Saxena here. So a warm welcome to IAP Thrissur. I invited Dr. Vinay Saxena, sir, to inaugurate and to give some for his inaugural address. Over to Vinay, sir.
Thank you, dear Dr. Anand Keshwan, respected Nitin Shah sir, President Thrissur branch, Dr. Rakesh, Secretary Dr. Pavan, and all the senior members. So it is a proud moment for me to be in a program where Nitin Shah sir is a speaker. Very few people know this fact. When I was a ordinary IAP worker, I was secretary of my city branch long back in 2005. Nitin sir visited our city and he strongly instructed me to come in front line. That's why I filed nomination on that year for executive board, and proud to be part of his EB. So in his EB, I was an executive board member for the first time, and he always promoted young people to come in front seat of IAP. So thanks, Nitin sir. Listening Nitin sir is always something. After every talk, you used to get a new thing. First when you came long back, I think 2000 in Muradabad to motivate young people for a pulse polio program with Swati Bhave madam and Naveen Thakkar. That was the first time I listened. After that, whenever I get any chance to listen to you, it was always a learning experience. So welcome, sir. And my wishes and topic is also very important, because still many pediatricians, even I am confused that whether this vaccine is working or not working. What will be new mutant? Is there any possibility of more dangerous or more dreaded variant? So a lot of issue, and I think Nitin sir is the best person to do justice with this very important topic. Welcome, sir, and thank you, Thrissur branch, for calling.
So thank you for the kind words, Dr. Saxena, sir. Now I invite our state president, Dr. Professor Vijay Umar, my classmate, to say a few words.
Respected Honorary Secretary General of CIAP, Dr. Vinay Saxena, and respected past President of IAP, Dr. Anand Keshavan, my best friend and classmate, and Vice President of IAP Kerala, Dr. Mukesh, Secretary Johnny Sebastian, and President of Thrissur, Dr. Rakesh, Secretary Dr. Pavan, and Treasurer Dr. Ittu, and my senior members like Parvati Madam, Purushothaman Sir, and I can see Dr. Singaravelu Sir also in the list. It is very happy to be here as a part of the Thrissur talk series. It started in last year 2021 and it was a grand hit. So thank you so much, Dr. Anand Keshavan and team, for continuing this program this year also, and this is the 12th series, and that is mainly on immunization and infection. And today we have none other than Dr. Nitin Shah, the vaccine expert and the former National IAP President, and the topic is the burning problem of COVID-19 variants and its vaccines. We are all eager to listen to this program because we are all in the midst of the COVID, Omicron and its complication, and we don't know whether, like last year, we will get more of MISC and other things in pediatrics in the coming few weeks. So I wish all the best for the program. Jai Hind and Jai IAP. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vijayamma. Now to our State Secretary, Dr. Johnny Sebastian.
Good evening, all. Respected Chairperson and my good friend in IAP, President IAP Thrissur, Dr. Rakesh, my well-wisher in IAP, a man always with a smiling, pleasant face, our own HSG, the vibrant Dr. Vineet Saxena, sir, from CIAP, my leader and guide, the State President, Dr. Vijay Kumar, sir, esteemed Speaker of the Day, a true academician, Nitin Shah, sir, past National Vice President, Ananda Keshavan, sir, ACBIP member, Dr. Pavan, the Dynamic Secretary, IAP Thrissur, seniors like Purushothaman, sir, Parvati, madam, and Mukesh, sir, and my dear colleagues who have joined on this platform today. At the outset, let me congratulate IAP Thrissur for arranging this excellent webinar series whole throughout the last year, and again continuing this year also, the Thrissur Talk series. The talk series is based on infection and immunization, and it was actually the main man behind the whole idea is Ananda Keshavan, sir. And I congratulate Ananda Keshavan, sir, for taking up this talk series, which eventually turned out to be a pride for IAP Kerala at the national level. As we all know, today the topic is very important as we are in the third wave, especially in Kerala, the number of cases are rising. So all are very eager to hear from such a great speaker like Nitin Shah, sir, today. I wish all the participants today a great learning experience and all success for today's webinar. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai IAP.
Thank you, Dr. Johnny Sebastian. Without wasting time, we are going to the scientific session. I acknowledge the presence of Dr. Shringara Velu, Dr. Srinivasan sir, Komalavelli madam, Sanjay Sharma, and so many other experts, Ashwini Agarwal, and so many other experts and academicians from all over India. Regarding today's speaker, I know Nitin Shah sir for the last 20 years. IAP Kerala got the first best branch award at that time. I think I was his executive board member, and I still remembering after the conference which was organized by Nitin Shah sir, but we got compliment a bunch of books, 10, 12 books as a compliment in that conference. I think sir maybe so it is very difficult to get it, but all are very, very good books, hematology series and all the special IAP special book series, something like that. We got 10, 12 books. Still, I got all the books. So, Nitin Shah sir was an excellent speaker, wonderful hematologist, and an expert vaccinologist. I think most wanted speaker today regarding, especially regarding the COVID series of topic. You can see his name. I think in many branches he was a speaker, and I think his hematology slides and everything it is very wonderful. And Nitin Shah, as we all mentioned, he's a pediatric hematologist from Hinduja Hospital and also BJ Wadia Hospital. Already mentioned here as past national president, but also chairperson of the Hematology Chapter also. And already discussed today's topic, COVID-19 variants and the vaccine, a burning issue. Regarding the initiation of the COVID, where we stand, whether all these things are applicable to variants and newer strains. Treatment, there are so many doubts whether we want a monoclonal antibody, whether it is effective, what about Omicron? Sure, the burning issue is the vaccines and its variants. In Kerala, we are about to start, we already given vaccination to 15 to above 15 years of age. Whether it is effective, because we are seeing that I have taken 3 doses of vaccine, and now I am on quarantine period. My friend got to 2 times already COVID infection, now 3rd time. He also taken 3 times vaccine. So all these are burning issue, and so many other hot topics are there. I think we have lucky to have Dr. Nitin Shah sir here to discuss to solve all this problem, and we can expect a very, very wonderful interactive session also. So Once again, I thank Nitin Kesha sir for accepting our invitation and to be here today to give his wonderful lecture. Over to Nitin Kesha sir. Over to sir.
Thank you, Anand Keshavan, Dr. Pavan, Dr. Rakesh, Dr. Vijay Kumar, Dr. Mukesh, Dr. Johnny from the state, Vinith Saxena, my old friend from Central IIP. Very good to see you, Vinith, at the chair, and I'm sure the chair deserves you more than you deserving the chair. Then I see also some interesting friends from Kerala and also some people like A. Balachandran. I am seeing him after so many years. Then Arup is there and so many people are there. And I very rightly say a lot of confusion about what is this COVID happening now with Omicron and how are the vaccines helping or not helping. And I hope that I will be able to clear some of the doubts. And after the presentation, if there are any questions, I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions personally and in general, and I will try to answer them. So I thank Dr. Anand Keshwan for making me part of this TT series, and I'm very happy to be present here amongst friends. Let me start sharing my screen.
Yes, yes, sir. I request all delegates to use the YouTube channel. Now it is a 100% full our WhatsApp this one. So please use your YouTube.
All right.
Yeah.
Fine. So the title of my topic is Omicron. Is it a friend? Is it a tsunami? Is it a trickle? Let's unfold the story of this Omicron. But before that, I dedicate this talk to all those who have died of COVID-19, especially our colleagues, frontline workers, who while fighting the menace of this dreaded virus, laid their life in helping and serving the humanity, waiting for the vaccines last year, and now waiting for the boosters this year. Disclaimer: I'm also tired of the Chinese vaccine as much. Chinese virus as much as all of you are. I'm sure. I'm not a COVID expert. I'm certainly not a vaccine expert as has been portrayed. I just read a lot and I can put together all the knowledge that I have gained while reading to you, and then we can discuss like friends. Probably you'll get confused more than actually be happy at the end of the talk. But yes, there'll be some confusion which will be cleared. And I wish you all a very safe and healthy year ahead. So this is the famous cartoon of the SARS-CoV-2 structure. Besides having the RNA virus core with the nucleic acid, it also has a lot of surface proteins. And one of the most important protein is this bugle-like spike protein, which is spiking out of the surface. Now, why is that important? Because the spike protein is the one which attaches to the human ACE2 receptor on the human epithelia, mainly respiratory tract. But it is believed that this ACE2 receptor is also there in the conjunctiva, maybe in the organs like pancreas, etc. That explains you why your blood sugar suddenly shoots up, even when you don't have diabetes, when you develop COVID. Now, obviously, when that is the port of entry through the connection with the ACE2 receptor, that also is the structure which is under the discussion, because you have an anti-spike antibody, especially the anti-receptor binding domain of the spike protein, the antibody against that, and that will protect you because the virus will not be able to get entry. And if the antibody is very, very strong, and especially it's also inducing what we call Th1 response and interferon gamma and syrup surface IgA, it can also lead to sterilizing immunity, whereby you not only prevent disease, but you also prevent spread of the infection in the form of asymptomatic infection. The same protein also is liable to mutations. As you know, RNA viruses are by their nature hypermutable. So when it mutates and mutates enough, it can escape the antibody, either the natural antibody, so you'll get reinfection, or the monoclonal antibody cocktail, which is used as a therapy, so it may not help, or most importantly, the vaccine-induced antibody, which if it fails, then it will lead to what you call escape mutant and a disease even in a vaccinated person. Now, this is the story of South Africa, but I think this is a story of most of the countries to a smaller or greater extent. Somewhere in March 2020, all this halla-gulla started. In fact, it was the December 19 where WHO was informed of a new virus by the CDC China. And then from January onwards, a lot of research happened, and WHO kept on giving red alerts, and then it declared this as a pandemic virus. So from there, the first peak somewhere from March to June 2020 was the ancestral or the original virus. And as I said, this virus is mutate. So in South Africa, there was a peculiar mutation, what is known as beta mutant. It was originally known as South African mutant. Now we know WHO and all the countries do not like countries to be named with mutant because, first of all, it may not be the origin country. It may be the country to report it first. And most important, it spreads beyond that country. So it's futile to give the name of a country. So instead, the Greek letters alpha, beta, gamma, delta, etc. are given to these viruses which are appearing as mutant. So this beta mutant was very important in South Africa. The second wave in December last year was beta mutant. Now, why this was important? Because Covishield or the AstraZeneca vaccine had zero efficacy against this beta mutant. Now, fortunately, this mutant did not spread a lot to the world, especially did not come to India too much. So we all escaped because, as you know, 90% of us are vaccinated with Covishield. And if that has zero efficacy against beta mutant, then that's going to be trouble. Anyway, after that, the disease disappeared almost till March, April, June, as also happened in our country. And then suddenly we had a huge outbreak of Delta, so also in the South Africa. And you can see each peak of beta and delta were higher than the original mutant, the original strain, number one. And look at the base of delta. It went on for a long time, almost like 6 months, leading to a lot of disease. Because the delta variant was also highly spreadable, that's why it choked up the healthcare facility. And you know, the horrible stories of beds not available, oxygen not available, remdesivir not available, tocilizumab not available, and so on and so forth. And a lot of people died because of lack of medical care rather than because of the virus, which is more pathogenic. And then by end of the last year, everyone felt that the virus has disappeared, it's become endemic, and maybe except for the highly at risk people, generally it will lead to mild cough cold like any influenza, and we have to learn to live with it. And I was also thinking that by March this year, the whole world probably will open up, and by June, masks may go, and so on and so forth. But the God had written a different history. And in Africa, you can see here from almost hardly any cases, 0 to 100 cases in November, suddenly a new mutant came in the form of Omicron. And you can see the cases jump from 283 of a 7-day average in 14 November to 17,000 7-day average on 22nd December. But the peculiarity of this virus is, one, it did not choke up the healthcare facility because it was mild. 2, it did not lead to too many deaths. 3, it did not lead to too much of pneumonia, and that's the reason why it was mild. And 4th, though the peak was taller than all previous mutant peaks, it was also sharp to fall. So within a month of its origin, you can see here it's already started receding, and by now probably it would have been somewhere here. So this is because of the Omicron, and that is the same story for most of the countries in the world. So this is, you can see the world, again, the same thing. Initially, it was the original virus, then the beta and the delta, and then now suddenly sharp increase in the cases because of Omicron. Daily average is 27,66,800 cases per 7-day average in the world. So you can imagine India also reported something like 4 lakh cases during Delta wave, and is already reporting 4 lakh plus cases during Omicron wave. The difference is during 4 lakh cases in Delta, we were all scared because of the choking of the healthcare system, whereas in Omicron, because not many are getting to the hospital, we are not as scared, and we are probably better off with oxygen and healthcare facility. So what is all these variant, strain, lineage, etc., the term which we use interchangeably? So as I said, RNA viruses mutate. And when this specific mutation or a set of mutations selected through numerous rounds of viral replication, it leads to a variant. Now, if the sequence variation produces a virus which is distinctly different from the phenotypic characteristic of the original virus, it is called a strain. And if that virus has genetic sequencing which gives a different branch of the tree on the phylogenetic analysis, that's called a lineage. So that's how these different viruses are born and circulate. So like the original strain was itself replaced by this D614G by March 2020, and after that it came beta, then delta, and now Omicron. So these mutants or variants are classified by CDC USA as well as by WHO into variants of interest, variants of concern, and variants of high consequence. Variants of interest means the virus has mutated, but not enough to lead to a disease which is different from the original virus. And there were 8 of them. Variants of concern, there are 6 of them. It tells you that there is enough disease pattern change. That's why they are of concern and we should be careful. And if suppose that virus mutates so much that it is completely escaping the antibodies, either natural or vaccine induced, then it's like a new virus altogether and a new pandemic. So that's what we call a variant of high consequences. Fortunately, we don't have a single virus of the SARS-CoV-2 which has a high consequences. All that we have is either VOI or VOC. So the first VOC was the so-called UK strain, which was now given the term alpha, which is the B117. This is a term given. It had 23 mutations and detected in 2020. Very similarly, as I showed you before, another mutant came in South Africa, which is now given label as beta mutant. It's 1.351. It also came almost the same time, but as I said, fortunately, it did not spread beyond South Africa too much. Then there was one gamma variant of concern, which was in Brazil, given the number P11281, which again did not spread too much into the world. So beta and gamma probably remained restricted to the local areas and not become a global variant. But when Delta came, that was a massive increase in cases world over. Delta was originally labeled as Indian double or triple variant, but again given the term Delta with the number B1617. Before that, there were 2 more in California, which were like B1427 and B1429, but they did not really spread and did not lead to much trouble. And now, as I said before, we have this Omicron, which is now given the number B11529, which is really spearing the spread of the virus all over the world, including in India. Like in Bombay, of the sequences done, 80% is Omicron and 15 to 20% is still the Delta variant. Now, why worry about variants? Variants can have high transmissibility. So like alpha variant was 40 to 80% more transmittable than the original strain. Beta was 50% more transmittable. Delta was 50% more than alpha, which means like almost 100% more than the original strain. And now Omicron, we know, is 2 to 3 times more transmittable than even Delta. So almost you can say 5 to 6 fold higher transmissibility than the alpha strain. That's why you see the doubling number of cases in the country and in the world has been 2 to 4 days. Like in Bombay, it jumped from 200 to 600, 600 to 2000, 2000 to 4000 to 24,000, reached up to 24,000, and now it receded, and we are back to almost 1,000 cases per day. And again, as I said before, 1,000 cases of Omicron compared with 1,000 cases of Delta, there's a vast difference in the severity. So at 1,000 cases also, we are very comfortable with beds and oxygen not in short supply. Now, this virus, when they mutate, they can also become highly pathogenic. So the mortality can be increased by 2 ways. One, because it's more pathogenic, like Delta was definitely more pathogenic than Alpha. But more important, because it is highly transmittable, it will suddenly increase the number of cases and choke up your infrastructure and oxygen availability. And that itself can lead to delay in treatment and mortality going up. So both Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, all of them have had their own share of increased mortality because essentially because they were not more pathogenic, but because they choked up the healthcare facility. The most important is the natural antibody escape. So if you took the sera of convalescent plasma, or you took convalescent plasma of patients who are infected with COVID in the past, if you compare the neutralization capability of this convalescent plasma against original strain vis-a-vis alpha, say, then alpha will have 1.5-fold decrease in neutralization. Against gamma, 4 to 6-fold decrease. Against beta, as I said, almost 100% lack neutralization, with more than 50% sample having zero neutralization capability. And with Omicron, it is even higher, 40-fold less neutralization. That's why you see a lot of people who are infected in past and who are had not 1, 2, but 3 and 4 doses of vaccine also have got Omicron, but mild as compared to Delta, where it was very severe. As much as it can escape natural antibody, it can also escape vaccine antibody. And that is the most important concern, because then your vaccine are going to fail. And it may mean you may need a different vaccine to cover the mutant and not use the original virus as the vaccine strain, because that's not going to help in neutralization of this new variant. And I'll show you some data on this. Can you make a mutant specific vaccine when I talk about the vaccines? And the third, and I think the most important, is the reduction in the monoclonal antibody neutralization capability. The only one which is available in India is that Regeneron, which is brought by Cipla. Basically, it's a cocktail of casirivimab and imedivimab. And that was working very well against alpha, gamma, beta, delta, but against Omicron, it has almost zero activity, as I'll show you later. So giving monoclonal antibody, which costs so much, to someone who has probably delta, is a waste of time, energy, and money. So this Omicron is a very specific, because you can see it has more than 37 mutation in the S protein, of which 14 are new to this variant, which were not seen in the previous any of these mutants. 15 of these 30 are in the receptor binding domain, the site where it attaches to the ACE receptor. And 9 out of these 15 are in the actual small peak or tip of that RBD, which is what you call receptor binding motif. So you can see a lot of mutation are happening in the critical area of the S of the spike protein, which is probably making the virus escape natural and monoclonal and vaccine-induced antibody. Now, how did this suddenly come out of blue moon? It is, as you know, more the viral replication numbers, more are the chance of mutation. So it is presumed that either the virus, the original Delta virus, or one of these original viruses replicated in an immune compromised host, where the replication can go on for months, and then it came out this with as an Omicron, or an interspecies ping pong transmission, where some other animals viruses and human viruses had led to the transmission in between the species, reassortment, and coming out with a virus with so many mutations. So November 24, new variant beta 11529 Omicron was reported to WHO from South Africa, and now it is present in more than 77 countries. On November 26, within 2 days, WHO declared it as variant of concern, looking at the speed at which the cases were going up when you had Omicron outbreak. Now, as I said before, these 37 mutations in the spike protein, of which 15 are in the critical domain, make it highly transmittable. Reduction in the neutralization activity of both the natural antibody, vaccine antibody, and the monoclonal antibody. But the silver lining in the dark cloud is that there is no mutation in the region which is a target for T cell response. So when T cell response is intact, as there's no mutation there, it will help to reduce the severity and death. And I think that's what is happening. While the antibodies might fail, the T cell response has come to our rescue, and many of us keep on doing our antibody level every now and then and feel happy if it is 50, 100, 200, etc., forgetting that you also have to consider T cell response, which is so much exemplified in the case of Omicron, where it is so mild and mild disease in spite of having so many mutations, is because the T cell response is still intact. So South Africa experience about what is the Omicron disease pattern. This is a huge healthcare group in South Africa called Nectar, which has 49 hospitals with more than 10,000 beds. You can see it captures a lot of diseases what are happening. They demonstrated 4 waves: the original, Beta, Delta, and Omicron, as I said before. And they studied the hospitalization patients during these 4 waves to compare what has been the different disease clinical pattern of all these 4 viruses, original to current mutation. Now, mind you, the positivity rate has reached 26% even in our country, and it's also reached 26% in South Africa. So they compared original strain, Beta, Delta, and Omicron when all the 4 had 26% positivity. So they were like at the peak, and compare the clinical outcome. And you can see here, if you look at patients admitted, 40% of the patient during Omicron, which is wave 4. So wave 1 is the original strain, wave 2 is the Beta strain, wave 3 is the Delta strain, and wave 4 is the Omicron. You can see a 41 persists, almost 70% in the previous strain. Look at the median age, younger people, 32 compared to 59, 54, 36 compared to 59, 54, 53 for the previous strain. More females infected with Omicron than in the past, where males were more infected. Patients with comorbidity was only 23% in Omicron compared to more than 50% in the previous 3 outbreaks. Acute respiratory condition seen in 30% of the Omicron cases versus 90% in the Delta. So that's the difference between the two, which is leading to decreased hospitalization. Now, oxygen requirement 17% in Omicron compared to almost 70 to 80% with the previous strain. Mechanical ventilation only 1.6% compared to 12 to 16% with the previous strain. ICU care in 18% compared to 30 to 40% with the previous strain. Length of the stay just 3 days compared to 7 to 8 days with the previous strain. And mortality 2.7% in the hospitalized patient compared to 25 to 30% with the previous strain. So almost all the severe parameters are tenfold lesser in Omicron as compared to the previous strain, especially Delta strain. Now, this is what is known as the Omicron hospitalization compared with the Delta wave. So this is data from UK, where they took patients who were undergoing RT-PCR who were hospitalized during Omicron era, that is current era, and during Delta era, and compare the Omicron versus Delta. So you can see, first of all, overall 75% hazard risk with Omicron compared to Delta. So definitely lesser cases. And if you look at the hospitalization, almost 40 to 50% lesser with Omicron as compared to the Delta. You know, Delta had a lot of hospitalization. So compared to that, is definitely appears milder based on this data from the UK. And look at the reinfection. Almost 50 to 60% lesser reinfection with Omicron compared to Delta. So we have not to really much worry even if someone gets Delta reinfection. Now, this is a retrospective cohort study in pediatric age group. What happened to the pediatric age group during each one? So through their electronic health record, they captured the data on 3 different cohorts. One is the current cohort of Omicron, that's from 26 December till 6 January. Delta cohort, which was 1st September to 15 November. And between 15 November and 26 December, there was an overlap between Delta and Omicron. So they took that as a separate group, what they call Delta 2 cohort. They looked at the severity, which was like the how many of them needed emergency visits, hospitalization, ICU care, or mechanical ventilation in children below the age of 5 years, and compared Omicron versus Delta and Delta versus Delta 2. What they found, emergency visit was 70% lesser with Omicron compared to Delta in children below the age of 5 years. Hospitalization was almost 60% lesser in Omicron time compared to Delta era in below 5 years. Same ICU admission are 70% less, and mechanical ventilation requirement is 70% less. So even in pediatric, Omicron is much milder as compared to Delta variant. And if you compare that with, say, the emergency visits and everything else in the Delta 2 versus Delta, you can see there is no difference because the risk ratio is almost 1. So Delta 2, which was a transition period, and original Delta, there was no difference. But between Delta and Omicron, you can see almost 70% decrease in the severity of the disease in children below the age of 5 years. Now, the same group also did a retrospective cohort analysis both in pediatric and in adult during Delta cohort, and compared in adults and children, same thing, emergency visit, hospitalization, ICU admission, and mechanical ventilation during Omicron period, which was like 15 December to 24 December, and Delta cohort, which was like 1st September to 15 December. And again, you can see they find the same thing. This is children below the age of 5 years. You can see here 80% reduction in emergency visit. 5 to 11 years, 70% reduction. Same way if you look at hospitalization, below 5 years, 60% reduction, and 5 to 11 years, 50% reduction. So even data in other countries also show that the severity is lesser in pediatric age group as compared to in the Delta variant. And again, seen adults above 65. ED visits, emergency visits, 50% less, and hospitalization above 65, 50% less. So even in adults, the disease is milder as compared to Delta variant. Now comes the question as to how are we protected, naturally or otherwise, against this Omicron. So this is neutralization activity in vitro against Omicron compared to Delta. So these are the people who have taken 2 doses of Pfizer vaccine, and you can see red is Delta, 0% had any protective antibody. If you look at people who have taken 2 Pfizer vaccine and another Pfizer vaccine, 60% had some protection against Omicron. So if you take a third dose, it helps. Likewise, you said those who had an infection following 2 Pfizer vaccine, again you can see 25% had some protection against Omicron. So either you take a booster or you get an infection after 2 doses, you do develop some protection against Omicron, and booster of vaccine is more protective, 58%, compared to natural infection, which is 29%. Same way with the Moderna vaccine, you can see 2 doses of Moderna, 0% had protection against Omicron. When they were given an additional dose, third dose as Pfizer vaccine, 80% came back with protective antibody. Now, what about our vaccine, Astra vaccine? You can see here, extra vaccine, if you have taken 2 doses, so this is 1 dose of Astra followed by 1 dose of Pfizer. It's a combination of 2, and again, still you get 0% people having any antibody against Omicron. But if they've taken 1 Astra and 2 Pfizer, then you can see almost 40% have some Omicron. So you have to take the third dose of the vaccine or get some natural infection, as is found in this experiment. And lastly, the people who have taken monoclonal antibody. So red is Omicron, light gray is Delta, and the dark gray is Beta. So you can see the light gray and the dark gray both have almost 90 to 100% sensitivity or neutralization capability of this Regeneron monoclonal antibody. But look at Delta, is almost 0. So giving this combination in Omicron patient is a waste of money and energy. This was then followed by a study where not 1 but 6 different vaccines were utilized to see the study to study the effect of its neutralization capability against Omicron. So this is convalescent plasma. You can see against Omicron, which is O, it is almost 0, touching the baseline. You look at the Janssen's 0, Sputnik 0, Chinese vaccine 0, Astra 0. mRNA vaccines with the Moderna, Pfizer have some activity against Omicron even with 2 doses. So mRNA vaccines seem to be the most powerful vaccine in general, and in particular when it comes to protection against Omicron. Now look at this study. If you have taken healthcare person who had taken 2 doses of Pfizer vaccine following a natural infection, then you can see here there was 5-fold higher antibody and 12-fold higher antibody against Omicron. And if they taken a booster dose of mRNA, then it was 15-fold higher. And dialysis patients necessarily receive 3 doses. You can see 1, 2, and 3 doses, and you can see all of them have a very good antibody. So from the previous slide in this slide, the message is that 2 doses of any vaccine do not help. If you develop a natural infection following 2 doses, it does protect to some extent. But if you take a third dose of the vaccine, especially the mRNA vaccine, then there's a lot of protection against even Omicron. And there are not 1 but 8 different monoclonal antibody which are used clinically in the world, of which only 1 is available in our country, which is the Regeneron. That is this one. The regeneration is a combination of 2 monoclonal antibodies, as I said before, 1 and 2, and this is the combination. You can see whether you use individually or as combination, again Delta, which is red, there is 0 effect. Same is true for the another combination like CoV555 and like CoV106, individually or in combination, 0 protection. And same way you can see here this another combination of 2130 and 2196, either alone or in combination, there is hardly any protection. The only protection which is seen is with this monoclonal antibody, which is not available in our country, and that's known as sotrovimab. Now, why does sotrovimab remain a very high efficacy against Omicron is because unlike these 7 antibodies which work by blocking the S protein binding to S receptor, that's where the mutation is. The sotrovimab actually works by neutralizing the virus, targeting the receptor binding domain of the virus. So that's why that immune response is intact and you are protected. Unfortunately, sotrovimab is not available. But as you know, 2 weeks back, WHO passed a recommendation that if you want to use monoclonal antibody in the current Omicron season, then you should not use Regeneron, you should use sotrovimab. Now, what is the data on the vaccine effectiveness? So this is in vitro neutralization. When you have this type of study of in vitro neutralization of various vaccines, etc., does it mean that you are not going to be protected clinically? So that is where the study was done in South Africa initially. This is data from the Discovery Health, which is like a huge health management organization in South Africa. They do a case control trial. So they take people who have undertaken an RT-PCR. They take those who have come negative and those who have come positive, and they compare the vaccination status of negative patient versus positive patient. And they take different time zones. So they take Delta period and they take Omicron proxy period where Omicron was circulating, and they look at the effectiveness of the vaccine. And what did it show? Overall effectiveness of vaccine was still 70% during Omicron compared to 93% during Delta. So we know Delta, it works very well, but even Omicron, South Africa shows that probably it works well, especially those with S-gene target failure. You know, this is indicative of probably Omicron. The vaccine effectiveness is persisting at 69%. So there is some effectiveness of the vaccine even against Omicron as seen in South Africa. But other studies from other countries, I'll show you, show a different picture. Now, this is a study done in South Africa where they showed that in vitro, the antibodies dropped by 40% for neutralizing Omicron. So almost touching zero, you can see here, as compared to the original strain. But those who had infection along with the vaccine, you can see the antibody that is higher compared to those who had taken only the 2 doses of vaccine. So again, 2 doses of vaccine are not enough, but if you have one more natural infection, then your antibodies are a little better. But when you give them a booster, you can see here against Omicron, the antibody had dropped 40-fold, but it jumps 25 times higher with a booster given after 2 doses. So it almost becomes similar in protection as again the original strain. So I am again stressing that you need this third vaccine to protect you against Omicron and maybe some other mutants in the future. So these are the neutralizing antibody levels done against Omicron compared with the original Wuhan strain in convalescent plasma at different time zone, in patients who had taken the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine at different time zone, with or without booster, and with Johnson vaccine at different time zone. And what did the data show? That in all this, after 2 doses, you can see the antibodies drop to a very low level. But when you give the booster, the antibody goes up, goes up, goes up. This is against Omicron. Same way, if you have given mRNA vaccine, you can see here the antibody against Omicron, which is in blue, goes up. So there is an increase in the titer from 38 to 154 higher when you take a dose of the vaccine as a third dose. So you can see here that the reduction in the antimicron titer at 1 month following convalescent plasma, at 6 months, you can see it goes further, and 12 months it becomes okay. When you take a booster, the titer rises 154 higher. If you take an mRNA vaccine, your titers fall to a very low level by 6 months. If you take a booster, then again your titers jump 38-fold higher. So whether you had a natural infection in the past or you had taken 2 doses of mRNA vaccine, you take a booster and your titers jump 40 to 160-fold higher with the booster dose. Now, this is the UK data on effectiveness of the 2 different vaccines. UK uses, as you know, mRNA vaccine, which is Pfizer vaccine, and Chadox vaccine, which is the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is Covishield in India. So this is comparing the hazard ratio for hospitalization in people who had taken either 2 doses of extra vaccine or 3 doses of extra vaccine against Delta, 2 doses of mRNA vaccine or 3 doses of mRNA vaccine against Delta. The same way you can see 2 doses or 3 doses of extra against Omicron, and same for the mRNA vaccine. And they also have a group which is unvaccinated during Delta time and unvaccinated during Omicron time. So first of all, if you compare, you take Delta as 1 risk hazard, then during Omicron, even in unvaccinated, the risk is 60%, that is 40% lesser. So that itself shows that even when you are not taken any vaccine, your risk of Omicron is lesser by 40%. Now, what about vaccination status? So first of all, looking at mRNA vaccine 2 dose and mRNA vaccine 3 dose, you can see here hazard ratio is 0.25 and 0.22, not much different. So the second dose is almost the same between Delta and Omicron. Now, when you compare the same for the AstraZeneca second dose versus AstraZeneca during Delta time and AstraZeneca 2 dose versus Omicron time, you can see here there is some drop in the effectiveness. Now, when you compare the 3 dose of Astra and 3 dose of mRNA in Delta versus Omicron, definitely for mRNA vaccine, there is a better effectiveness as compared to the Astra vaccine. Now, this is UK data which was done on 3 groups of patients. Those who had taken 2 doses of Astra vaccine in past, those who had taken 2 doses of Pfizer vaccine in past, and those who had taken 2 doses of Moderna vaccine in past. And by November, when the spread of Omicron happened, they started giving a booster earlier, within 3 months of the last dose, to give a maximum benefit to people, especially those who are at risk. And again, they did a case control trial of those who had undergone PCR, those who tested negative versus those who tested positive, to look for their vaccination status. And what they found, again, Delta, immediately after 2 doses of the vaccine followed by a booster, the 2 dose had effectiveness of 76%, dropped to 40% by 6 months and became 93% after booster. So again, even Delta booster helps. Same way for the Pfizer vaccine, you take 2 Pfizer followed by a booster, your efficacy has dropped from 88 to 63 by 6 months and goes up to 92 after the booster. So if you're taking a booster, again Delta, you regain your efficacy to more than 90%. Whereas you look at the Omicron, there is no efficacy after first 3 months if you're taken a Astra vaccine. But if you're taken a booster followed that, then the efficacy jumps to 71%. Same way, 2 doses of Pfizer vaccine, the efficacy drops to 35% against Omicron by almost 3 to 4 months and jumps to 75% if you're taken the 3rd dose as a booster. So again, Delta booster effectiveness is more than 90%, whereas again Omicron, it still is high at 70 to 75%. Now, this is subjects who had taken 2 doses of Pfizer vaccine. They were boosted with either Johnson's vaccine or a Pfizer vaccine after 6 months. And you can see here, no matter which way you look at, whether you take the neutralizing antibody titer, you take your commercial ELISA titer, or you take the CD4 or CD8 cell response, your titers jump 40-fold, 17-fold higher when you take the booster of either Johnson's vaccine or BNT. So you don't have to really take only the same vaccine as the 3rd dose. You can take even a heterologous booster at the 3rd dose, and yet you will have a massive jump in your neutralizing antibody titers. What about Sputnik? It's available in India. Very little data, but if you're taken the 3rd dose of Sputnik, then your neutralization antibody, which have become so less, they do rise to some extent. So some effect, not as good as that seen with the mRNA vaccine. And what about our Covaxin? So this is a study done where they did a study at 6 months following the first 2 doses of the Covaxin. And you can see here, 6 months after 2 doses, the titers have dropped. Again, the original strain, this is the Delta 1, Delta 2, this is the Beta strain, that is South Africa strain, and this is the Alpha strain. And you can see here, for all of them, there is a drop in the titer, but they take the 3rd dose of Covaxin, and you can see the titer jump up almost 160 to 174 higher for Delta and for Alpha strain. What about Omicron? There is a press release from Bharat Biotech, a study done in Emory University to test for neutralizing activity of the 3rd dose of Covaxin given 6 months after the 2nd dose. 100% of sera had neutralization antibody against Delta and 90% had neutralization capability against Omicron. And it says that the neutralization activity against Omicron was very similar to that seen with mRNA, which means we don't know characterization of this statement, but enough to say that if you have taken a 3rd dose of Covaxin, also you are protected against the Omicron disease. Now, the last part of my talk before we take the question answer is to talk about the boosting, because I think that's one question that is bugging mind of every person. So this was a multi-centric randomized trial and a very important trial. They took 2 groups of people. One group had taken 2 extra vaccines, that is same as Covishield, and one group had taken the Pfizer 2 doses. They randomized them to receive the third dose almost 70 to 80 days after the last dose with 7 different vaccines. Which were the vaccines? Third dose of extra vaccine, third dose of Pfizer vaccine, third dose is half dose Pfizer, third dose is Moderna vaccine, third dose is Novavax, third dose is half dose of Novavax, third dose is Johnson's vaccine, and third dose of a Chinese vaccine, and a third dose of a wholesale vaccine, but not Covaxin, but a European vaccine, which is a different adjuvant as compared to Covaxin, and we will discuss that in length during question answer if you have any question. So you can see a very elaborate trial done with different vaccine booster to see how much is the heterologous versus homozygous boosting effect. First of all, side effect wise, pain, fatigue, and headache were the most common side effect. On all the side effects were more common in people who received the mRNA vaccine compared to any other vaccine. But generally safe to give the third dose of any other vaccine as a booster. Now we concentrate on this group because these are all of us, 2 doses of extra vaccine in the past. You take the third dose of extra vaccine, your antibody titers jump 3.25 fold higher. If you take Novavax, it jumps 9-fold higher. You take Pfizer vaccine 25-fold higher. You take Moderna 30-fold higher. You take Johnson's 6-fold higher. If you take the killed vaccine, not good, 2.2-fold higher. So the maximum is with Moderna, least is with the killed vaccine, and this is what will happen to all of us if when you take the third dose, your titer will jump 3-fold higher as compared to your original titers. Now, if you look at the speed at which the antibodies go up with the booster, then you can see here by day 7, the antibody double and plateau by day 28 for the spike antibody. For the cellular response, you can see here, when 2 people were taken 2 doses of extra vaccine, when you took the third dose of extra, there was hardly any increase in the cellular response from 61 to 91 and 72. Compare that with, say, Pfizer. 47 becomes 154. Moderna, 48 becomes 140. Johnson, 36 becomes 120. So each of these vaccines induce a better cellular boosting as compared to taking third dose of extra vaccine, where the increase in the boosting is not much. So while your antibodies do jump 3-fold higher, which is nothing as compared to this higher antibody, your cellular response is something which does not go up as compared to the other vaccine booster. But as I said, again, Omicron, even the original cellular responses are intact. So even if there's no increase in the cellular response by your third dose of extra vaccine, you really don't lose as far as you have 3-fold higher antibody titer after you take the third dose of extra. Of course, if the government policy opens up that you can take any booster you want, then I would either take an mRNA vaccine or a Novavax vaccine. Novavax is available in India as Covovax from Serum. For some peculiar reason, this is not made available still, but I thought probably it was better to take Novavax or a available vaccine rather than taking the same third dose of extra vaccine. All right, so which vaccine failed on cellular response? The third dose of extra vaccine failed and the killed vaccine failed. Okay, what about the Pfizer group? Those who taken 2 Pfizer group, when they took now extra as the third dose, the titer jumps 5-fold higher. With Novavax, again 5-fold higher. With the same Pfizer, 8-fold higher. With Moderna, 11-fold higher. And even with Johnson vaccine, 5-fold higher. But look at the killed vaccine, only 1.25. Statistic not significant. So again, highest was with Moderna. Same Pfizer vaccine, good. Killed vaccine, not good. Even if they take an extra or Novavax, it is good. So in mRNA prime people, it does not matter so far as you take any vaccine as a booster. Again, you look at the speed of the increase. You can see by day 7, the titers jump almost 3 to 4 higher. And also for the cellular response. Now, if you give extra vaccine as a booster to mRNA vaccine then you can see even cellular responses jump to a great level with this as a booster. And which vaccine failed again? The killed vaccine failed. All other vaccines passed the test. Friends, this is Israel. 1 dose, 2 doses, and this is the 3 doses. As you know, they already started giving the booster dose immediately when Delta variant appeared. So 1 dose is 71.5% coverage, 2 doses is 64, and all the 3 doses is 46%. When the Omicron started, the Prime Minister of Israel was on the record on 3rd of January this year to say that now they've approved second booster, That is 4th dose of Pfizer vaccine for those who are above 60 and all healthcare workers because they are constantly exposed to the virus. There was a lot of criticism, especially European medical system warned on 11 January saying that too many boosters can weaken immune system. There is no need for the 4th dose as on today till more data comes, especially when Omicron is mild. And maybe you should time the booster not like this, but like you give influenza during winter, you have a season when you give this booster vaccination. And a very early data on 150 healthy adult medical workers of all ages who are the first to receive the second dose, second booster, that is 4th dose of Pfizer vaccine in this Sheba Medical Center. There was no safety issue when the 4th dose was taken. And 1 week after the 4th dose, the antibody jumped 5-fold. So while they were criticized, they actually showed that there is increase in the antibody titer. But do that protect against Omicron? So more than 500,000 subjects have received the 4th dose of Pfizer vaccine. And in Sheba Medical Center, they did an early study in 274 subjects who received 3 previous Pfizer vaccine and who received either 4 doses Pfizer or 4 doses Moderna, and they looked at the anti-spike antibody, which was of course higher than after the 3rd dose, but the Omicron cases were a bit less in boosted than in the control, which means this higher antibody did not translate into an increased significant effectiveness against Omicron with the 4th dose. So you don't need the 4th dose. 3 doses are just enough till further data comes or some other new mutant virus comes. So this is talking about a variant specific vaccine. When beta variant was predominant in South Africa, where Astra vaccine had failed 0% efficacy, Moderna made a beta variant specific vaccine, which means they replace in their vaccine manufacturing the original strain with the mRNA of 1273351 beta variant strain. So they had the original vaccine, they had the beta variant vaccine, and they mixed them into 1:1 ratio to make a combination vaccine. Now, 6 to 8 months after 2 doses of original vaccine with this 2 Moderna vaccine, they gave them a booster dose of the 1:1 mix original strain as well as this variant specific strain, and they studied what is the neutralizing antibody response. Now, what they found, safety wise, there was no issue with the between the any group. Now you look at, this is the group which received the original vaccine. This group is the one which received a combination of original plus the mutant specific vaccine in 1:1 ratio. This was following the before the 3rd dose. This is after 3rd dose with the boosting with the original vaccine. You can see the antibody titer jumps against the original strain, against the beta variant and the Brazilian variant by 32-fold and 44-fold. This is the data with the combination vaccine, where again pre-vaccine 3rd dose, there was a very low level. And again, you can see the titer jump 12-fold, 35-fold, and 27-fold again, original strain, beta strain, and P1 strain. Now you compare beta strain here, boosting with original vaccine, 32-fold higher antibody. Beta strain here, boosted with a combination of original and a variant type of vaccine, 35-fold higher. So there was some increase, 32 to 35, but not much difference. So you really don't need a vaccine which is specific to a variant every now and then. That should be reassuring for people that they can do away by taking a booster, maybe heterologous booster, rather than waiting for a booster of their choice or booster against the specific variant, unless we are faced with another mutant which is of high consequence, where there is complete escape from the natural or vaccinated antibody. Then probably you will need a different or a completely new vaccine. Today, the world has 58% coverage, 49% with fully vaccinated, and another 9% have received at least 1 dose. Look at India, a shed better, 61%. Look at the high income country, 78 and 76, and they are already giving 3rd and the 4th dose, whereas the low income country are suffering. Look at the low income. 4.4% have received both the doses, and another 4% received at least 1 dose. So only 8% of the population received at least 1 dose. I think it's a crime to waste 4 doses here, then not these children, people not getting even the first 2 doses, because the world is not safe till all countries are safe, and all countries will not be safe till vaccination available. So I think it's an humble plea instead of hoarding. It was said that once Canada had 7 doses per citizen, where they needed only 2 or 3. So they were hoarding vaccines. All these high-income countries are hoarding vaccine. Instead of hoarding, they should donate it to the WHO so that this low-income country and the low-middle-income country also can pick up vaccination and can make a world a better place to live. And lastly, if any one of you have doubt about booster, this is my photograph. I'm putting it boldly. This is my photograph. This is my certificate. I have nothing to hide. I took my first Covaxin in March 21. I took the second Covaxin in April 21, and I took the third Covaxin now on 12th January this year at Hinduja Hospital. So please, my humble please to all of you is that do not wait for the ideal to happen. Take any booster that is available, which will be better than not taking any booster. You can always take an mRNA vaccine or some other vaccine like Novavax, maybe 6 months, 9 months later if required, but don't wait for it. And I don't want anyone to have a mishap and we lose some colleague or some our dear and near one because we waited for the ideal to happen. Most important vaccine which we are all forgetting is that the virus spreads by droplet, so you need social distancing. It drops by aerosol, so you need mask and face shield, and it also may spread with fomite, though less now, so you need sanitization. So social distancing, mask and sanitization is something which you must continue to follow vigorously and have faith in the God. He has created us. He may destroy us or he may spare us. It's up to him. We should not worry about what's going to happen in future and spoil our present or today, because let's all live today, whatever under constraint, with full energy and life. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. I hand over mic back to the organizers for any questions, if there are any.
Thank you, sir, that for the wonderful session. Beautiful 50 slides, and there's so many messages and everything, sir. And lots of questions are waiting in the chat box. Before
Sure.
that, two, three questions from my side, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now it is Omicron everywhere.
Yes.
Will you get herd immunity following the Omicron after 1 month, 2 months? Will you get, it is end of the.
Yes, we already have. So some people say Omicron is a suicidal mutation by the virus.
Yeah.
Because one is highly transmittable, two is mild as immunizing people. Yes, unless some other mutant comes up in the next 6 to 8 months. Remember, after Delta also we felt the same by June 2021, and in January we are back with Omicron. Something may happen in the next year. So I think at least a year or 1.5 years should pass like this with minimum cases. Then we can say that we are safe to remove all the barriers like mask and sanitization.
Is any vaccine companies are producing vaccine in the form of flu vaccine because to face different variant type? Can we imagine about changing vaccine every 6 months or every year?
So unlike flu vaccine, where the flu virus is so hypermutable that you need a different flu vaccine, that has still not happened with COVID virus. We know that even original vaccine strains are working against alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and to some extent even Omicron if you've taken the third dose. So I don't think so you can equate COVID-19 with flu that is going to need vaccination every year.
There are so many variants different in different aspects. So the original antibody test, everything is how much accurate is this one? How much we can rely on all this test?
Correct. So your antibodies are tested against the spike protein from the original virus. So it tells you how much is the antibody you have against the original virus. But that antibody may not neutralize the mutant, depending on which mutant. So there will be neutralization, but the neutralization capability will go down by 1 to 60-fold till Delta and 40-fold with Omicron. But because the vaccine induced such high antibody that even when, like suppose say for Pfizer vaccine against Delta, there was 6-fold decrease in the neutralization capability, and yet the efficacy was maintained at 90%. So booster is more important than to worry about how much is the decrease in the fold. The fact that there is decrease and leading to a breakthrough infection in vaccinated and naturally infected people means that you need to increase that antibody by taking a third dose of the vaccine.
How significant is the new subvariant of Omicron still now spreading in UK?
So to know the subtypes of Omicron.
Yeah. Can
So
operate the antigen test detect the all COVID variants?
So by doing RT-PCR, if you have S gene dropout, so you know in an RT-PCR normally you amplify 3 genes. So like in Hinduja we do 3: O, OFR, the N gene, and the S gene. If S gene drops out, that means it doesn't amplify, then that is more likely to be Omicron. But now we are going to have an OV sure, which is specific to Omicron RT-PCR. So it tells you that this is Omicron. Reason why I'm telling you is important is because if you do nucleic acid sequencing, it will take weeks for the report to come. You need to take a decision now how to treat the patient. If you have OV-short type of RT-PCR, it tells you is Omicron, don't give monoclonal antibody. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. The question by Bala, number of cases coming down in Mumbai is due to less screening of patient or TPR significance?
Correct. So in the last 1 month, home-based kit testing is available in plenty, but that's true throughout the entire month. Like I used to do 10, 15 video consultation at night for this COVID patient, adult and children both. Now I hardly do 1 or 2. So the fact that testing might be done at home, which may not be captured, giving you a false decrease in the cases, but also our own experience is that the consultation have drastically reduced for COVID. So I have a strong belief that these are actually decreasing the cases. And same thing has happened in South Africa, where I showed you the steep rise and a steep fall. According to me, I mean, I didn't have the slide, but Delhi has peaked and gone down from 30,000 to now 5,000. Mumbai has peaked from 24,000 to 1,000 now. So also Kolkata, which peaked to around some 5,000 to now less than 500. Ahmedabad is picking up. Surat is picking up. Bangalore is on fire, reaching 35,000. And so also Pune. So these 4 cities are now firing because they are the last second lot of cities to be infected. They will also come down in the next 15 days.
Kerala, we are constantly above 50,000.
Correct. Kerala has for somehow controlled COVID so beautifully in the first 1 year, and then everything went out of hand. I must also tell you that, as you said very rightly, a lot of people in other parts of the country don't test and they become okay. If you are going to test every child with cough cold fever, every adult with cough cold fever on day 1 or day 2, you're going to pick them up as Omicron or any COVID, and that will increase your number of cases. I think now we have to change our parameters from number of cases to number of beds utilized, number of oxygen beds utilized, number of ICU admission, and number of ventilated patient, and number of deaths. If that is coming down, that means the disease is under control. Even, let's say, 25,000 cases in Mumbai, and yet beds were available in major hospitals. 86% of those who died of Omicron in India were unvaccinated. That tells you that vaccination helped against deaths and severity. So again, I reiterate, while we all got cough, cold, and fever umpteen number of times in a year, we never bother what the cause is. Why are you worried about Omicron as the cause, even if you have mild cough, cold, and fever? So far as you don't land in hospital, you don't get admitted, you don't get oxygen, you don't die.
This question, can mischief happen with the Omicron?
Yes, we already saw 2 misses this time. So they were all because of Omicron, but they are milder. And now because we are wiser, we don't lose these patients. Look out for children, older children with toxic shock syndrome like presentation, severe fever, headache, vomiting, loose motion, and they come in shock. Smaller child, Kawasaki like fever, rash, swelling, edema, peeling of skin, platelets going up, etc. And you pick them up and treat them in the first 1 week, you will not lose the patient.
So can we take a non-Covishield vaccine as a precautionary one?
Which one? Which one? Novavax?
A Sputnik Covaxin.
Sputnik is doesn't have really that much data on the 3rd dose.
Yeah.
Covaxin, I showed you already, there is data on the 3rd dose. Again, Delta, so definitely. And also again now Omicron, with the release from the Emory University, shows 90% of sera are protective against Omicron. So if you have to take, you take the 3rd dose of Covaxin, but I wouldn't say Sputnik. You take Covishield or you take Covaxin. Anyway, you don't have choice. If you have taken first 2 doses Covaxin, you can only take 3rd doses Covaxin, and also same for the Covishield.
Many are getting positive even after the booster, first booster.
Surely.
So why is there any data on this one?
So the effectiveness against hospitalization is 60 to 65%. Effectiveness against mild cases is not studied. So my feeling is that taking a booster helps you prevent hospitalization, whether it's Delta or Omicron.
What is the R value in Indian at present?
R value of Omicron at its peak was 6. Now it has probably fallen to less than 2, I would say, at least in area like Bombay and Delhi.
So Omicron does not target the T cell response. So
Yes.
why worry about the antibody level with the booster?
Absolutely. Why are you worried? I am not worried. I have never done an antibody last 1 year, maybe, or maybe more. I just took the vaccine. I have not done an antibody even after taking the third dose. That is the first booster. People keep on doing every month, every 2 months, and mine is better than yours. I'm more white than you. It doesn't help. because T cell are more important than antibodies.
So what is the ideal time for the booster dose in reinfected person recently?
So in
I have
reinfected
infection.
person, if they were mildly symptomatic or asymptomatic, 15 days to 1 month. If they were in hospital for some reason, maybe because of Delta, they should wait for 2-3 months after clinical recovery.
Previously we told about the three months after the.
Yeah, that was when Delta was there, because most of them were very severe. This is mild, so 1 month is okay.
Already people who were given precautionary dose
Yes.
are affected with the COVID. Are we late in administering the so-said first booster?
So how many of them hospitalized? If none of them were hospitalized, I would say it didn't matter whether they develop mild cough, cold, and fever. Question of delay. So UK started giving within 3 months of the last dose when Omicron came. We waited for 9 months. So yes, there was some delay, I would say. And our vaccine is not the best vaccine. Let us be very sure. But they are not as best as the mRNA vaccine. But they are still protective in the nature that a lot of people have been prevented from getting into hospital against Delta and against Omicron. So I think the bottom line is you have to live with what you have, right?
Did you take a Covaxin as a booster after 2 doses of Covaxin, or you'll go for heterogeneous better?
Correct. So there was a study done for the 2 primary doses where they took 4 group of people. One group received 2 Covaxin, one group received 2 Covishield, and other 2 group received Covishield followed by Covaxin or Covaxin followed by Covishield. And this heterologous group developed 4 times more antibody than the homologous group. Even in the Covaboost study I showed you, where you took heterologous booster, there were more antibody than with the homologous. So if you take heterologous booster, it is always better than homologous. But the question is that's not permitted officially in our country.
Okay, sir. I think
so you can take a flight, go to Dubai, take a Pfizer vaccine.
So now invite Dr. K.K. Purushottam, sir, head of the Department of Medical College of Manjeri. He's a vaccine expert here. So
yes, please.
I invite Purushottam sir to say a few comments.
Sir, thank you, sir, for the excellent talk. I'm not an expert. I have. Will you please allow me to talk 2 minutes, second?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, 2 things, sir. One thing is about the 3rd dose, and another thing is about the IAP recommendation of the vaccination for the pediatric age group. First thing, so all the documents you showed about the benefits of the 3rd dose. And in the initial part, you only documented that the neutralization capacity for the vaccine, which is originally developed in January 2020 against the original virus, the neutralizing capacity of all the vaccine, whichever platform is the less than 10 times less. Maybe 10.6 was the one of the studies, and you said it is 40 times less. So such a situation, even if this booster is given, you'll get a shoot up of the wave of upgrowth, but it will come down within a matter of 1 month, maybe 4 to 6 weeks. So definitely it will work, but for a very short period that nobody is highlighting. That is one thing about the short. We should be highlighting this very short period of protection by the booster. That's one thing. About the pediatric recommendation, the coming weeks throughout India, we are going to have the strain replaced by the Omicron. In Kerala, it is 94%. And in the coming week, it will be an endemic state of a little bit of Omicron and Delta and other strains, small endemic state. In that situation, what is the point in giving any of the recent vaccines? Let it be Bharat Biotech vaccine, let it be Zycov-D. This will all be lasting immunity for a few weeks in any child. So it is just like giving a passive immunity for a few weeks. All these 40 years of experience with the vaccine, in pediatric age group, we didn't give any vaccine which will give such a short immunity. So what is the basis of giving any of this vaccine to kids? Which virus are we going to protect? At present, these are the viruses available, and maybe in the coming new mutation that will come, and the present vaccine, if you are using what is IAP recommended, it's a waste. Unless we come with a mutant vaccine strain, which will be coming, and there is no point in giving the vaccine, mutant vaccine for the Omicron also, because by another few weeks, it will be reaching almost all the kids also. So the IAP recommendation, what is the basis of this thing? Maybe except for the highest risk group, can we justify the recommendation?
So I cannot speak on behalf of IAP because I am not part of the IAP immunization committee member, but I can speak as an individual opinion and entirely my opinion. I think, first of all, 15 to 18 years are the children who are in the 10th, 11th, 12th grade. The parents are extremely unhappy if the children are not vaccinated to send them to school. The children who have not faced any thorough, a real exam physically, and they are going to be prepared for 12th and the careers in engineering, medical, etc. Plus, this is the group which can develop moderate disease, if not severe. And if they are at risk children in that group, then they can, of course, develop also severe disease. So looking into all that, instead of starting vaccinated right from 12 years or from 6 years, as Israel did or USA did, restrictive approach from 15 to 18, look at the side effect profile, look at the feasibility, etc. I think it's a good exercise. First of all, I don't agree with your statement to say that your immunity is going to be lasting only 4 to 6 weeks. We all took vaccine in 2021, January, February. Until Delta, we were protected. Omicron, anyway, no vaccine protects unless you take the third dose. We did not take the third dose, you don't expect. My worry is not the Omicron. If you are worried on the Omicron, don't even take the third dose, like the entire community is not taking. But suppose Omicron is replaced by Delta tomorrow, because the way Omicron comes and goes away, it's not going to leave behind a void. Unless we all feel, and I hope that's true, that entire COVID will fizzle out after Omicron, then that's good for the community. Anyway, all vaccination will stop. But you cannot have a knee-jerk response. Suppose tomorrow Delta come, now you suddenly get up, okay, everyone start taking, then no Omicron, now stop. You can't do that in public health. So I think your points are individuals. For public health, you have to take one policy which is long-lasting. And I think long-lasting till the time COVID is declared as not a major public health problem, vaccination should continue, including the booster for at-risk people and people who are at risk of continuous exposure like all of us, and for children from 15 to 18 and 12 to 15, because they are the ones where not only they can get severe disease, but they can transmit it back from school to the teachers or the parents and the grandparents. Now, once we know that the COVID has become a completely endemic with few cases here and there, I think all vaccinations will become voluntary, or all vaccination may even stop in the future. But till that happens, and I don't see that happening for the next 6 months to 1 year at least. I think we must continue our efforts of vaccinating adults who have not received the 2 doses, those who are eligible for third dose to receive third dose, and children to prepare for another mutant which may come in future, where this vaccination, even though is again the original strain, may protect. You are not doing any harm in giving the vaccine. See, in public health, many times you have to balance between the pros and the cons. And I think the balance is more towards vaccinating rather than not vaccinating.
Now we have head of the Department of Medicine, Dr. Ganavati Rao sir, from Amrita Medical College, Kochi. Ganavati sir, welcome. A few comments. Unmute sir, unmute. Girija madam, welcome.
Nitin bhai, it was fantastic. Great presentation. One of the best presentations I have heard in my life. I'm honest.
Thank you, sir.
Cleared a lot of doubts in our mind, and you have given a very, very correct message to the young doctors all over the world. Those who have heard you. Great. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So now we have Shingaravali sir from Tanjavur. Shingaravali sir. Shingaravali. Mahendra sir, any comments? Chennai. I was happy to see you after a long time. Mahendra sir.
Balaji, ennache nallerga.
Nitin, can I talk?
Dr. Balachandran is speaking. Prashant, wait.
Nitin, I took the third dose of Covaxin. Then within 4 days, I developed COVID positive, and I recovered on the 3rd or 4th day of the fever.
Correct.
What is my status, Nitin?
So you have received 3 doses and a natural infection, so it's as good as you have taken 4 doses. Now you don't need another dose for the next 6 months to 9 months, at least, and maybe forever.
Everybody laughed at me when I took the dose because senior citizen, why did you take all the rest and all? Then I took boldly. I go at the third dose, I took it on the correct date.
So remember, Covishield is having the problem of central venous thrombosis and thromboembolism only in young women. Okay, like the mRNA vaccine has the problem of acute myocarditis in young men. For people who are above 60 or above 50 or above even 40, both Covishield and Covaxin are extremely safe, even as first dose, second dose, third dose, fourth dose. So safety is not an issue. And I think correct is to follow the principle. If you are eligible for the third dose, take it. That's it. And I think that's my message. And that's why I put boldly my photograph and my certificate to leave any doubt.
I'm really relieved by seeing your photograph.
Absolutely. Normally I don't like to put these personal photographs and all because
this gives a lot of moral boost to many senior letters.
So anyone had doubt that should they take third dose, I have taken. And I have taken, a lot of people will follow me.
Thank you.
So now I met Dr. Arup Roy from Kolkata. Arup Roy. Arup Roy just put a comment. Arup.
I think he's not there.
Okay, now our past HOD, Dr. Parvati Madam, Senior Pediatrician and past State President of IAP, Parvati Madam. Nitin sir, I think, Madam.
It's always a treat to listen to Dr. Nitin Shah. It's always a treat to listen to you. I have heard your talk several times.
Thank you.
And my sister, 83-year-old, she had the third dose also, but when she was admitted for some other illness, she was found to be positive.
So that is coincidental. That's what I'm saying. They are either mild, asymptomatic, or if at all, mildly symptomatic. Very rarely Omicrons have gone into hospital and gone on ventilation. I think that's very reassuring. In today, if suppose in Hinduja hospital, there are 50 patients who are COVID positive, 25 are admitted for their primary problem, hernia, hydrocele, infarct, bypass, something, cholecystectomy, and the COVID test is done before admission, it comes positive. They are asymptomatic. Everything any symptoms that they disappear in 2-3 days. After 2 weeks, they are taken again for the surgery. I had a leukemic child who has febrile neutropenia following chemotherapy. I had to admit him because he's a febrile neutropenia. We did COVID is positive. He never had any cough, no pneumonia, nothing, all markers negative. Behaved like a typical febrile neutropenia following any malignancy and came out of it. COVID was just coincidental. So most of the COVID which are there in the hospital, which are not in ICU, or even if some who are in ICU, they are coincidentally COVID because the test is done before surgery. If you don't do the test, you will not even know that they have. I'll give you an example of my own relative. They went to South Africa. They went to, the African safari, came back. They did a test there. It was negative. After 9 days, they got a phone call from the local authority that you have to do one more test because you have come from abroad. They did the test and they were both positive. And they had no symptom before that, after that, anytime. They just quarantined for 7 days. They came out. So that is a scenario today. And I think that should be very reassuring that don't get charged up with this COVID too much unless you are really at risk with very heavy diabetes, obese, more than 70-year age, and you are not taking proper precautions. Then only you should worry about COVID. Otherwise, simple care of maintaining saturation, doing 6 minutes walk test, taking symptomatic treatment, avoiding a lot of hazardous drugs itself is more than enough.
Dr. Yashandra Rao, unmute. Yashant.
Yashant is not responding. Good.
Yashant, unmute.
I think he's not there, Anand Keshwan.
But he's awake.
Anyway, Anand, I have to leave in the next 5 minutes.
Okay, sir. So, if there's no more questions, we'll end the session. It was an excellent session. And also, on personal behalf, I'd like to thank you very much, sir. Now, I invited Dr. Srijit Kumar to propose official vote of thanks.
Thank you, AK sir, for inviting me. And
sir, one last question. So can I ask one question? Nitin sir, sir.
Yeah, Rakesh, please.
Yeah, sir, can we continue with our routine exercises? Like we are jogging, can we do this? Because we go to hospital, we are exposed. I have taken the third dose also. So after this, can we? Yeah.
Absolutely continue. Why not? Anyway, good, because you'll develop good endurance. You will be able to sustain the side effect if you get severe disease much better than one who doesn't do exercise. So absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, Srijit.
Srijit, please.
Thank you, sir, for coming to IAP Thrissur and giving an excellent talk and clearing all the questions and all the addressing all the controversies and clearing all the doubts. And also, I thank sir for answering all the questions in the chat box. So thank you, sir, for your excellent talk. And I also thank all the senior delegates who have joined in and the senior members, Dr. Purushottam sir, Parvati madam, Balajendran sir, Ganapati Rao sir, and other senior members who have joined for this today. We have a full house today. We have almost 100 participants and we have made throughout this session. And I must thank our Honorary Secretary General Vineet Saxena sir, who inaugurated the session, and the office bearers of IAP Kerala, Vijay Kumar sir, and Johnny Subhash sir, and IAP Thrissur OB, Rakesh sir, and Dr. Pavan Madhusudanan. And finally, I must thank Anand Krishnan sir for organizing all the talk and providing this excellent session. So thank you for all of us joining for this program. Hope you to join on the next session, and good night and Jai Hind and Jai.
Thank you, Idrisha sir.